Shalom, shalom everybody. Daniel from Ancient Biblical Oils. I thought I'd just jump on here and make a quick video on a very controversial subject, the subject of Kabbalah, right? Is Kabbalah something which is good, or is Kabbalah something which it is that is evil, right? And the short answer to that question is yes, right? Yes, what do I mean? That Kabbalah can be both good and it can be evil as well, right? And now the unfortunate thing is that for us in the West, we don't understand that from a biblical perspective, words have meaning. And almost every single word in the scripture or in life is neutral, right? So we've not been taught what the word Kabbalah actually means. We've just been taught to be afraid of it, right? And it's foolishness. Why? Because Kabbalah actually means to receive. Right? We don't have the actual word Kabbalah in the scripture, but we have the root, which is Kabbal, which means to receive. Right? So what does Kabbalah mean? It means traditions received. What traditions specifically? Traditions of interpretation of the word. Right? Now, once we understand that Kabbalah actually means traditions of interpretation of the word, we therefore understand that for sure there can be good interpretations of the word, right? And there can be evil traditions of interpretation of the word. Everybody has Kabbalah, right? This is the reason why you have more Christian denominations today than verses in the Bible. We got Shlomo here trying to get involved in the discussion. Right? So the issue is, how do we tell the difference between good Kabbalah and bad Kabbalah? Or maybe we should give some examples first of Kabbalah in the word, okay? Or Kabbalah that we all use every single day. So for instance, okay, numerology, right? There's nowhere in the scripture that it says that we should use numerology to be able to get any sort of understanding in the word. However, right, and I know that the audience that I'm speaking to right now believe in the New Testament. So we see in the New Testament the idea of 666. Now, where does this come from? Where did the writers of the New Testament actually get this idea that a man's name could be linked to a certain number? Right? There is nowhere in the scripture where it tells us to look at any sort of numbers. Right? This is 100% Kabbalah, traditions of interpretation. That within the Israelite culture, there's an understanding that the Hebrew language is the language of creation. And you get understanding from each Hebrew letter, because each letter's got a pictograph, right? Not only you get understanding from each letter's picture, each letter has a numerical value. And so we talk about things like 7 is the number of completion, 5 is the number of grace. Where does this come from? Right? There's nowhere in the scripture where you can see this. However, when the sages, the elders, looked into the word and they looked at the idea of creation and they saw that on the 7th day everything was perfected, they then understood to say, oh, 7 means the number of perfection. And today we use that, not understanding that we received that tradition. Right? It is not something that we came up with. We received it. It is Kabbalah. Okay? Now for sure, there is evil Kabbalah, right? And the way it is that we define the difference between good Kabbalah and evil Kabbalah. Maybe I'm not finished with the ideas of Kabbalah in the word, right? One of them is the idea of eating bread and wine and what those things symbolize, right? The body and blood of the Messiah. This tradition was put into place from a biblical perspective at the time where it is that the Malik Tzaddik, which is Melchizedek, came and visited Abraham and he brought wine and bread. And ever since then, we receive that tradition. It was given unto Abraham, and Abraham seems to have passed that tradition in the family for I don't know how many thousand years, to the point where it is that we now understand that that means the body of Messiah and the blood of Messiah. Kabbalah. Right? Now, how do we know the difference between good Kabbalah and bad Kabbalah, right? And for those of you who it is that are out there, I said we have X amount of different Christian denominations. more denominations and verses in the Bible. This does not mean that everything within Jewish Kabbalah is righteous or good, right? However, this does not mean that everything in what it is that our Jewish brothers tell us is Kabbalah is evil either, right? We have to understand the way it is that we differentiate from a biblical perspective. The scripture clearly tells us that there are secret things in the word, right? Book of Proverbs, King Solomon says, it is the kavod of Elohim, the glory of God to hide the word, and the glory of kings to search the word out. Right? So if we are a royal priesthood and a holy nation, right? A royalty, if we are kings, guess what your duty is? To search for the secret things of the word Kabbalah. Right? Deuteronomy 29 verse 29 is where we get the understanding of how to differentiate between good Kabbalah and bad Kabbalah. Right? Let me just pull up the text quickly. So it says, the secret things belong to Jehovah, our Elohim, our God, but the things which are revealed belong to us and to our children forever, that we may do all the words of this Torah. Okay, what does that mean? It means that within the Torah, there are secret things. Jehovah then says that he shows his secret things to those who it is that are draw close to him. Right? The ones who are special to him, he shows them these secret things. These are people like King David, people like Solomon, the prophets, etc., etc. Now, once these secret things are actually shown or revealed, the purpose, the power behind those secret things, or the practice of those secret things, is to cause us to draw closer to the king and obey him. Right? That's how you know whether Kabbalah is good or it is evil. Does it cause you to have a stronger relationship with the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and therefore his word? Does it give you more faith in the word, the Messiah? And therefore you will trust and you will obey. Right? How you know that the Kabbalah is evil is, do these secret things actually pull you away from Jehovah, from the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and his word, and cause you to not trust him and therefore walk in a different way, aka to sin? Then you know that for sure that's evil Kabbalah, right? We know from the beginning. The evil one is the one who comes and says, oh, did Jehovah really say that you don't have to obey? You can actually live your life however it is that you want. Right? Whoever comes to you and gives you interpretation of the word that says to you do not need to obey, understand that person is operating from a place of evil Kabbalah. Right? An evil source from the darkness. And yes, there are separations within darkness. The scripture tells us. In the beginning, in the English, it says Jehovah separated between the light and the darkness. But in the Hebrew, it doesn't say that. It says that Jehovah separated between the darkness and between the light. What does that mean? That there's separations in darkness and there's separations in light. Right? Not all darkness is evil. And not all light is good. Right, so when I'm talking about darkness here, I'm saying that that person's operating from a place of evil, rebellion to the great king. And you're talking about light, you're talking about someone who's operating from the place of obedience to the king. Okay? So don't be fooled by words. What we need to do is understand, what do these words actually mean? And then get an understanding of saying that the only thing that can separate a man from the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is sin. And therefore we need to understand what sin is. What does the scripture tell us that sin is? Sin is violation of the Torah. Violation of the law is what sin is. That's the only thing that can separate you from him. Now 100%, right? Because everything was created out of here. Then guess what? Inside of the occult, everything that has power, guess where it comes from? Here. Why? Because the Satan is not a creative being. He's a created being. He cannot create anything. All he can do is take that which is in here and pervert its use. That's the reason why everything in the occult of power is a counterfeit of the real thing. This is the reason why every single nation, if they're worshipping Satan or through Ishtar or through Baal, through whatever false god, they will all sing, they will all burn incense, they will all pray, they will all have a temple, they will all have priests and priestesses, etc., etc. Why? These are all ideas that come out of the word. All will have sacrifice, all will have the same story or similar story to how the world was created, the flood, etc., etc. Why? We all come from one place. There is one source of wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. Right? Now, why is it that we are diving into these secrets and wanting to develop a deeper relationship with the King? Is that we believe that the whole purpose of the Messiah was to cause Jew and Gentile to become one, right? And to empower us to be able to have a closer relationship with the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and therefore to exhibit power in our lives, blessing that the world will know. It profits a people to serve Jehovah. And for well over 2,000 years, Jew and Christian have done everything in their power to use Kabbalah, their traditions, to separate from each other. Right? No matter what the truth is, if my Jewish brother believes that truth, then I am not going to believe it because I am not Jewish. And from the Jewish perspective, no matter what the truth is, if my Christian brother believes, if my brother who believes in Yeshua as the Mashiach, believes that same idea, even though it is truth, I will reject it. And we're saying enough. Enough. This is not what it is that Messiah came to do. Messiah came to reveal truth. Right? Truth. And only truth will allow you to connect to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Not men's traditions. Not being faithful to being Christian. Not being faithful to being Jewish. Truth. That's where power will come from. That's how restoration will take place. And we will actually accomplish the mission of the Messiah, which is what? Bring Jew and Gentile and make them one. Right? This is why we don't waste our time teaching on stuff which is that everybody's teaching. For 2,000 years, this fight between Jew and Gentile and pushing truth aside for agenda and camps is the reason why we have had the longest exile to date. 2,000 years. Enough. Right? We need to understand what our great King desires, what is actually in his heart. And regardless of traditions, let us draw close to him. What are his traditions that bring about a deeper and closer relationship to him? Right? That's what it is that we're interested in. All right. Sorry, I'm getting a bit emotional and passionate there. But I hope that you get an understanding from that. Shalom.